All right, well, welcome everybody. I am so glad to have the opportunity to have a conversation that I think is really important right now of figuring out how to manage all of the studenting and parenting during COVID-19. I don't know that any of us have the answer. I don't know that there is an answer, but we want to be able to have a conversation and share collective wisdom. And part of this is around providing you with the space to recognize that you need to be generous with yourselves and share that you're not alone in this challenge. But part of it also is providing some strategies for how to navigate the school system, how to connect with other parents and other similarly situated student parents to provide support. So we have some great panelists who are going to share their wisdom, their collective wisdom today. And so I will let them introduce themselves. Cara, you're next on my screen. Do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yes, I'm Cara Maffini. I'm in the Department of Child and Adolescent Development, and I'll be talking today about mental health.
Great. And Emily.
Hi, Emily Slusser from Child and Adolescent Development. I'm a department chair and faculty member, and I'm along for the ride, but available to answer questions.
Great. Let's see, Maricela.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Maricela Alvarez, and I am the Student Success Center Advisor.
Great. And I think that was our main presenters for today. So I don't remember who's next on the slides. Anna, can you advance?
All right, that is me. And so today we wanted to give some time to talk about mental health. At this point in the semester and this point in the pandemic, I think I find myself saying, gosh, I just feel very stressed. I hear it from students all the time. I feel really stressed right now. And it's kind of a blanket statement. So I wanted us to do a quick check-in. How do you know when you're stressed? And so I have a Jamboard that I created. So if you could go there and just add whatever thoughts you have. I wanted you to think maybe it might be physically. You might notice some changes in your body. You might notice some changes in your emotions or your ability to think clearly, or maybe your desires to interact with other people or how you interact, and as a parent as well. There's no right or wrong. I get headaches and I get angry. Headaches are a really common way that we experience stress and a lot of our mental health. Anger too. It's a lot easier to say we're angry than we feel hurt or sad or defeated. Grumpy, that's irritable. Yeah. Not as present. Yeah. Difficulty being in the moment.
For anybody who's not familiar, yep, there you go. Brian is showing you how to add a sticky note or some other information to the Jamboard in case you're following along.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I wake up thinking about work, like not being able to think about other parts of our life, feeling tired and lethargic, big sign. We don't always exercise. Often the first thing to go is taking care of ourselves. Less patient for sure. Yeah. Any others? Forget to do your self-care. Yeah. So you're a couple slides ahead of me, which is great. It means we're on the same page. I stay too quiet and overthink. So we get caught up in our head. We might have some runaway thoughts that feel difficult to control. And that relates to us having difficulty being in the moment. We're not normally excited about things or we don't normally care about things we normally would. Yeah. This is great. Any others that we want to add? Any others? Same. Yeah, I imagine that these resonated for me. I imagine that they resonate for many of you on here today. So we'll go over to the slides, and you very much articulated just common experiences of our socio-emotional well-being, our mental health. Nowadays, we also say behavioral health because so much of our psychological well-being is also interwoven with our behaviors. And so I decided to sometimes when people talk about stress and they worry that they have like some disorder. And so I wanted to talk really clearly about some signs and symptoms of mental health. And so I honed in on the two most common, which are anxiety and depression. Most of the population report at some point in their life feeling, some level of anxiety and some level of depression. It doesn't mean that there's a disorder, that there's something really wrong with you. Some of this is just kind of being human, right? But we want to kind of parse out, like, when does it feel like it's too much and when is it just kind of normal? So I just broke down really common symptoms that we see. We see changes in eating and appetite. Some people want to eat a lot. They want to eat everything inside, or they primarily want to eat junk food. Others report having no appetite, having no interest. Sometimes when we're feeling so anxious, some people hold it in their stomach and then they don't have a lot of appetite. Changes in sleep, if work, schoolwork, parenting, life stressors are occupying your mind, you might have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep. You might have nightmares. You might wake up early. And then others want to just sleep all the time and kind of avoid life. We tend to see greater levels of fatigue. And part of that is what's going on in our brain requires a lot of energy for our body, and that can elicit changes in energy in other ways. Difficulty concentrating, focusing, that being present, being in the moment is very common. A lot of aches and pains, and sometimes that's kind of discarded, and it's just thought of like, oh, I was just sitting too long today, or oh, I'm just getting older, or something. But it's worth noting, like, we tend to see adults tend to hold, and this is a broad generalization, but holding a lot of stress in our head and report more headaches, and children will report more stomach aches. And that could be anything from, stress, frustration, anger, being homesick when they're away from home. So just some things, aches are worth kind of keeping an eye on. And something that's kind of noteworthy to take into consideration is when we're having trouble completing our daily functions. And that could be in terms of our academics, that could be socially withdrawing from other people, that could be difficulty or not wanting to engage in our normal functions as parents. So the ones on the left column are really ones that we see both with people who report feeling anxious and report feeling sad or depressed. And then the ones on the right are worry about many domains of our life that's difficult to control. That's more characteristic of anxiety. Again, not necessarily a disorder, but something that, is commonly reported. And I'll clarify what I mean by that in just a moment. So the worry across many domains, we're all a little worry helps us often be productive, right? It helps us stay on top of our schoolwork. It helps us, pay the bills and get things done. It can potentially. But when worry kind of spans all parts of our life and it feels difficult to control, we have trouble controlling those thoughts, that's notable. We might feel sad, irritable, as was reported. We might have more bouts of tearfulness or have like really strong emotional reactions to a situation that may not have warranted it. A lot of people report like not feeling like themselves, feeling worthless or, guilty. Sometimes when I feel as a parent, I'm not as patient. And then I feel really guilty that I wasn't as patient. So it can manifest like I'm not fulfilling my role. Not enjoying things normally would, as was reported in the previous slide. And then thoughts of death. And that's sometimes, existential, like, there's the, what happens when I go, this isn't like this. This is, I don't know if I should be here. And so when I had said like a disorder, sometimes then we think that warrants treatment. And it might, and that's going to be a decision between you and your care provider. I provide all this information to kind of give people a list of things that to know kind of, what are common signs and symptoms. And when you need to seek help, that's ultimately going to be up to you. And there's a lot of different ways that we seek help. For some, it is to go see a psychologist, but that's not really what's effective for a lot of people. I often say a lot of people just need a good friend, but a lot of people don't know how to be a good friend. And so I want us to take a moment today to think about, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to think about what you do when you're stressed. How do you de-stress? So Brian, on the next slide, I have a question for thinking about the self-care piece. The second slide on the Jamboard is, how do you manage stress? So sometimes when we're stressed, we forget to use the tools and techniques that work for us. And so I wanted us to just do a quick check-in, a quick poll, like, how do you manage stress? What works for you? You might want to, riding your bike. Yes, some physical activity can be so helpful. Oh, breath work. Yeah, so that can be, pausing and tuning into what's going on with our body, and that can help slow our mind. It engages our parasympathetic nervous system. Working out, a lot of physical activity. Target, is that going to Target or is that something else? Journaling, reflecting. Taking, long walks, yeah. And sometimes that could be also with someone that we love, or could be also time by ourselves. Creating some time for the family and being mindful, yeah. And it feels like these things are so much easier to do when we're not as stressed, and often the first things to go when we are feeling more stressed. The journaling, it's interesting, research shows that just identifying 3 things that you're grateful for every day improves our psychological well-being. And another thing that we often forget when we're feeling stressed. Let's see, audiobooks, a little fiction as an escape. Yep, that is a good one. Turning off technology. Being alone, or taking time with people that you love, writing down your feelings, that can be good. That helps engage your prefrontal cortex. Engaging different parts of our brain, which is good. Seeking professional resources at CAPS, or it could also be they have a lot of informal resources, which can be really helpful too. But it can also be nice to talk to someone who is in no way invested or connected to, all the ins and outs of your family. And when I was doing clinical work, I would tell people, like, you can just come in and you get to say all these things and leave them with me. Like, I'm not going to your family celebration. And that can feel really cathartic for some. But that's just a one small hour a week. So there's so many other things we can be doing. Family game nights, I love that. Yeah. Good. And so then the next thing I like to ask people, I'm not doing this today, but is what gets in the way of how are you managing stress, and how do we overcome that? Those would be our next steps. But I'm going to skip back to the slide. Sorry, Brian, to make you keep going back and forth. But thinking about these things that you just identified, maybe others identified that you also enjoy, I want you to challenge yourself to make your well-being a priority. And why I phrase it like that is, I frequently get particularly parents that will say, I don't have time for that. And I say, how can you take that bike ride or go for that walk? And they'll just say, I don't have time for that. I have all these deadlines. I have to, cook meals and, and be caring for my children. I just don't have time for that. But someone once said to me, when we say, I don't have time for that, it is really our way of saying that's not a priority. And so when we say, I don't have time for that, that's saying I'm not a priority when it's our own self-care. And so what I challenge people to do is to think about one thing you could do for yourself each day. It doesn't have to be big. It might be like just having like a nice cup of coffee or tea that you look forward to in the day. It could be going for that walk and setting aside 10 minutes to do that. It could be watching like a 20-minute, episode on Netflix just to relax. It could be carving out time for your family, whatever it is. There's no value judgment on what it is, but prioritizing that. When we identify it at the beginning of the day, we're saying, this is part of my day. This is important to me. And so thinking too about our wellness, not just physically or psychologically, but also socially, you know, what are we needing in our relationships? You know, academically, what do we need to concentrate and get our tasks done in terms of balance in our life? So thinking about ourselves holistically. I also wanted to direct you to CAPS on our campus. They have this page that just talks about different kinds of wellness, and they give you ideas for all the different domains of wellness. So definitely worth checking out. So I just, you know, kind of spewed a lot of information out at you. So many things I'd love to share, maybe a potential resource to use in the future. But before we move on to the rest of this talk, I wanted to just switch back to the Jamboard one more time and have everyone identify one thing you could do for yourself today. Could be small, could be big, whichever, anything. What's one thing you could do for yourself today? Also didn't mention spiritual wellness. That can be important too. Ooh, stretch, that's good. Cook a healthy meal. I like that. Yeah, going for a walk this evening. Yeah, the weather, it's not too hot. Thinking about how we can model these things for our children, for sure. Yeah. Recognizing you know, recognizing about how we can prioritize ourselves and our self-care and how that is modeled to our children. Ooh, doing a kickboxing workout or a meditation. That's good. Hugs go really far. We got to stimulate that oxytocin. Yeah. Yeah, good. A lot of good ideas here. A lot of like physical activity, which is exciting and great for a Friday afternoon with nice weather. Maybe we can get out and about. So I just challenge you. For some, it helps to have a little Post-it, you know, on the mirror in the morning. I've had people say, it just feels really selfish to me, as I said, you know, to take that time for myself, but thinking about it as a way that I can be better. Thinking about the oxygen mask metaphor, you know, on a plane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on before you can help someone else. And as parents, we need to do that. And so taking a few moments to care for ourselves helps us be better parents. It helps us be more in the moment. It helps us be patient. It helps us see those great things about our kids that we may have trouble recognizing when we're really stressed out and not present. And so I challenge you each day to just find one small thing you can do to care for yourself. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Cara. That was, so I will acknowledge for those who are on the call that I think many of us are also parents who are sharing our experiences. And as a parent of an 8th grader, I have 2 older kids, but I also have an 8th grader. And I found myself ticking a lot of those boxes when you were talking about all the ways in which we manifest our stress. So I felt like I just got a little therapy session. Thank you. I don't know if you knew that you were going to do that today. So, you know, the next piece that we're going to look at is, so in addition to ourselves and needing to take care of ourselves, one resource that we have is our classroom community where our children are. And so Maricela is going to share some information about networking within the classroom community and how to navigate that in ways that feel effective and help us to realize that we're not alone.
Thank you, Heather. And yes, so we have 4 recommendations on how to network within the classroom community of your children. And the first one is to be proactive in communicating with your child's teacher. And so remember that you are part of their team. You are working with the teacher. So give yourself the opportunity to know more about the teacher, get to know your child's teacher, and allow them to get to know your family. Right. A lot of the teachers are also trying to figure out how to best support the students, and they know that each family has unique situations. And so feel free to share like your family strengths and also areas that you need support or that your child needs support. Because remember, you are your child's first teacher and you will always continue to be their first teacher. So you know your children more than anyone else. And so that's valuable information to your child's teacher. And also just ask if they have office hours, because many times you might see your son or your daughter struggling and not knowing that they can connect with their teacher at a different time and maybe do one-on-one support time. So that's always good to know. And if the teacher hasn't publicized their office hours, email them, and let them know what's going on. And I know that many parents are also saying like, they have all these projects to do. It's hard for me to like know what's due when. So it's okay to also ask, like, do you have a calendar of, the projects that my son or daughter has and when are they due and all of that. And the other one is to take advantage of any parent support groups if they are available at your child's school. So a lot of schools want to offer, just like maybe workshops and that are focusing on maybe learning more about this system that your school is utilizing, that your child's school is utilizing, right? The online classroom, like the portal, because it might be new for some parents. And maybe it might be new for you as well. So if they're using School Loop or Power School to understand your child's attendance or even their academic progress. And also many schools have what's called Cafecito with the Principal, an opportunity for the principal to share any school updates, any news that are happening. And it's also an opportunity for you to ask questions and provide feedback, right? It's an opportunity to say, I'm struggling with this at my home. And you might hear other parents say, hey, me too. And so the schools want to know that so that they can provide some resources. And if you want to also support like in a, like take on a leadership role, please know that there's always like the school site council or the ELAC. And so the school site council, it's a group of teachers, parents, and administrators and other interested community members who work together to develop and monitor the school's improvement goals or plans. So this is also a good opportunity to know what is the school where my son or my daughter goes focusing on, right? And how can I support that? And the other one is use communication channels. So some schools might have Parent Square, Remind, or the Google Classroom. So it's good for you to know where are they providing the information to parents and am I connected to those systems. And this, again, it's all based on your comfort level, because some of us might be like, oh yes, I have Parent Square and I can do this. And it might be a little bit too much for other of us. But just know where are they publicizing the information so that you have all the information and you can share that with your son or your daughter or prepare them for any new changes that the school's planning to do. And lastly is to offer and ask for support. So I'm sure that I've had some advising appointments with parents and they tell me, oh, I didn't know how to do this, even just like with my progress or things like that. And so one parent told me it's kind of the same thing that's happening at my son and my daughter's school. Some parents don't know how to download projects and stuff like that to help their children. So if you see some parents that are struggling and you know how to do that, by all means, ask if they need support, right? We're all in this together, and we never know when we are going to put a smile on someone else's day, or also like if you need support, what ends up happening is that you establish your own support system. And right now, none of us have experienced a pandemic before. And so as we connect with other parents, we will want to talk about what are some challenging parent situations that are happening. They might say, hey, I'm trying this, I'm trying that, or also celebrate the milestones among the group. So that's what we have for you today. But also please know that this is within the classroom of your child, but all of these recommendations, it also applies to you as a student. And we as advisors or your professors want to know what's working for you, and how can we support you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcela. And I would encourage, if folks have questions or comments, you're welcome to put them in the chat. We'll also have some time at the end and to have further conversation, or if you have insights as to how to navigate this, because as I say, we're all learning and all figuring it out together. So the next set of slides is really about the structure of school. And you know, right now, typically it would be the kind of thing where we'd be able to walk into the school and ask for help, and the school secretary or the school administrator is there to provide support. You see your child's teacher, but that's not always the case now. We're often feeling like we're very separate from the school. And one of the big questions is we know teachers are working really hard. We know schools are trying to figure it out. And a lot of parents are feeling like there's isolation, that there's challenges of, can I ask for more? And so what are the things that are reasonable to expect from your child's school at this time? You know, we know that there's all kinds of challenges, but there are still expectations of what your child's school should be able to provide support for you and your child. And so obviously, you know, one is we expect open and regular communication. And that's, I say obviously, but I don't know that that's always obvious. And sometimes we're not demanding that in the way that we could. We need to have that opportunity for you to provide input about who your child is and what their successes are. As Maricela points out, being able to share about your family and what's working for you is really important. And that needs to be heard by your child's school, by your child's teacher, by the school more broadly. And they need to be able to communicate with you. And I know that right now, and my 8th grader poked his head in my office earlier, my bedroom door earlier today, and said, I'm supposed to go to school to pick up a book. They had a window between noon and 1. And you know, fortunately, my husband was able to take him, but that's not the kind of thing that feels like it's really appropriate. That idea of, on an hour's notice, giving a family member an hour between noon and 1 to go pick up a school book. And so you need to be able to push back when that regular communication doesn't occur, because you're not just pushing back for yourself, you're pushing back for the larger community, because you aren't alone in feeling that stress and feeling that strain of not being able to be right there all the time. So pushing for, if there's going to be changes in the schedule, if there's going to be differences in how students are assessed, if there's going to be materials that we need to pick up from the school, what kind of opportunity is there going to be to notify us ahead of time so that we can plan our lives around it? And typically, you know, when I've pushed back, people are always, oh yes, of course, but the communication doesn't always come as successfully as it could. You also need to have specific updates on the successes and needs of your child. And again, that goes both ways. So you need to be able to provide that information and feel comfortable providing that information to your child's teacher, but they also need to be providing that to you. With older kids, certainly we want them to take greater ownership of that, of what's working and what's not. But with younger kids, especially, you know, being on Zoom or other online platforms is really challenging for a lot of kids. And so teachers need to be communicating directly with parents in order to make sure that the children are supported by both the teacher and the parent in order to help their success. And so, you know, you should be receiving fairly regular updates on what's going on and what's happening. And if you aren't receiving those updates at least once a month, you should be reaching out and saying, I would like an update, so that you're able to understand what's going on and provide input on, well, this isn't working for my kid right now. Because, you know, again, teachers are figuring out, I think most are doing the very best they can under really challenging circumstances. And many also have their own children at home that they're trying to navigate with as well. And if they're not getting that insight back from you of what's working and what's not working, then they often don't know what's working and what's not working. Targeted supports for your child is another piece for this. So if your child isn't succeeding in this space, they need to be able to provide you with targeted supports. And so that could be extra support from a special education teacher or a special education aide. It could be bilingual education supports. It could be providing supports for technology because you don't have a computer that your child has access to. Those are all things that can and should be provided by the school system. Is it going to be perfect for everyone? No. But those are things that the school district is required to be providing for parents and for children to make sure that they're successful, is those additional supports. And I know that that is not always something that's easy to ask for, but it's the responsibility of the school district to provide it. So make sure that you are asking for those targeted supports where needed. And then finally, flexibility. I think right now everybody recognizes that things are not consistent and not normal for a lot of families and a lot of children, and being able to have some flexibility of, the assignment's going to be late, or my child's not going to turn on their screen right now so that they're visible, or my child isn't going to participate on this day because we have some other things that we're going to work on as a family. There is tremendous latitude, and I put a link in the slides here, and maybe we could put it in the chat as well so that people can access that, so that you can see what the changes in the state requirements for schools. So schools say, if your child doesn't come to school on Thursdays because you've found an enrichment program that you want to take them to on Thursday mornings, or you need to be present with your child and you have class on Thursday mornings, so you can't be present during that time period. And the school tries to say, well, you have to, or else you're going to be fined. There's been a lot of flexibility in terms of how the state is responding this year around how attendance norms are taken because of COVID. And so recognizing those changes in state law will allow you to have some greater authority when you're saying, this is what our family needs to do. This is how you need to be flexible to help support our family. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions before we go on to the next slide. Practicing my wait time. All right, Brian or Anna, can you take us on to the next slide? So this is Maricela already shared some of this, so I don't want to be duplicative here, but just to reemphasize and underline, in terms of communicating with the school and strategies for ensuring your child's success, really viewing your teacher as a partner in supporting your child's success. Ideally, you want to have that close partnership and really see them as an ally and advocate, and you want them to see you as an ally and advocate for the child's success. Letting them know when things are working and when they aren't. And those are both equally important, right? Especially right now, they're not always able to see what's working and what's not. And so letting them know when things aren't working, of this assignment didn't work and here's why, or this might work better. You are the expert on your child. You know what will work best for your child. So you need to let them know when things aren't working, but also recognize when they are. Again, a lot of our teachers are working really hard. They're being incredibly creative to try to figure out how to make things work in the middle of a pandemic. And if you can help them celebrate when there are successes, that not only reinforces their energy and recognizes the contributions they're making, it also lets them know this worked for this kid, and so therefore maybe I need to do more of this. And so helping to reinforce some of the times where things are really successful can be just as instrumental as letting people know when things aren't working. Maricela also mentioned offer to help when you can. Building that partnership does mean providing those opportunities, and sometimes it's helping another family. It could also say, I have an hour on Friday mornings. Can I do a book club with a group of kids during that time period? And I can either read out loud to them, or we can be, my kid is reading this chapter book that they love, and can we do a book group, a club with 5 other kids that they're going to get together and talk about, and I can help facilitate that. Those kinds kinds of things really go a long way towards building that partnership and demonstrating that the commitment is there on all sides. And it's also helping that teacher out so that they can provide more targeted supports to individual children as needed. Obviously, you know, not expecting that you're going to take everything on, and want to make sure that you're not trying to say you're going to do even more. But if you do have something that you can help with, and maybe that's only once every semester, that would be great to be able to share your time and talents. And then finally, don't be afraid to advocate. If you're feeling like, hey, wait a second, this isn't working, it can be really uncomfortable to have that conversation, but that is essential for your child, is that you advocate, and also as they get older, that you help them have the language to be able to advocate, so that the fourth grader, the fifth grader, the sixth grader feels more comfortable speaking up in class and saying, I needed some additional time and here's why. And so that it's not a pushback of this is mean, but instead it's here's my concern and here's my suggestion on how to fix this concern for them, because that's a life skill that they'll take with them throughout their educational and professional careers. And again, there's a link there about how to partner with your child's teacher, and helpful article. I'll pause there again for any questions or comments or suggestions. All right, well, the next slide in here is about who to advocate with. So I put together just a little infographic, and you can see classroom teachers are kind of in the middle. I don't know who's got the mouse, but if you could use the mouse, there we go. There's classroom teachers in the middle. And I guess I took a screenshot of it and you could still see my mouse. But you know, they are the heart of the work. And so I want to make sure that that is your first and best ally and advocate for your child. And they're not the only ones that are connected and committed to this work. And so, you know, in addition to your child's classroom teacher, there's also on the left side of the screen a whole host of people who are associated with the school. Often the first person you end up talking with, if you call the helpline or you go into the school, is the school secretary, and they have tremendous power as a gatekeeper. And sometimes that's really helpful, and they can be the best person to connect you with the resources. And sometimes they truly are a gatekeeper and end up feeling pushed out. And I know for myself, I experienced that when I went from elementary school to middle school as a parent, the school secretary went from being somebody who was fantastic at connecting to somebody who was really a strong gatekeeper at pushing people away. And that varies depending on grade level. It also varies just depending on individual school. So certainly where possible, you want to be able to utilize the school secretary to help you figure out how to get the support that you need. But there's also obviously other folks, and being able to go directly to them via phone or via email can be really helpful. So a lot of schools will have counselors and speech language pathologists and nurses that are available. Many schools have resource teachers that can be special education teachers. It can also be resource teachers who focus on reading or literacy or mathematics to provide additional support. And many of those individuals will also have aides that provide support. And then certainly the school principal is somebody, if you're not able to get the answers that you need from your classroom teacher and from some of the other people that you try to connect with, connecting to the school principal can be a tremendous next step in making sure that you're advocating for your child and you're getting the supports that you need. And then hopefully it doesn't come to this, but just so that you know, beyond, and I'm sure many of you already do know this, beyond the principals report to the superintendent. The superintendent is supported not only by principals at individual school sites, but also by associate superintendents in different divisions. And that can include, there's just some examples on there. Instruction is an obvious one, but student services is another place. And so if it is the type of thing where you don't have access to internet, or your child doesn't have access to a computer, and the school site is saying, I'm sorry, I don't have resources, connecting into student services at the district level can be a huge ally in making sure that you're getting those resources. And then also beyond the superintendent is the school board. And so if you're not able to get the supports that you need, school boards are elected officials, and they are elected representatives, and they are responsible for making sure that the schools and the district are doing what the public needs. And so that's another source of allyship potentially as you're looking at how to navigate the system and advocate for your child. Now, obviously, you know, I think that the primary purpose of the conversation is to focus on your child. And if you can get there by talking to your teacher, making the teacher an ally alongside you, that's the first and best step oftentimes. And sometimes, often it's the only step that you need. But there is this network of individuals who are out there to provide those additional oversights and supports where needed and where appropriate. And then we'll skip on to the last one and then pause for some question and answer. Some additional advocacy groups, and Maricela already talked about some of these. So the PTA or PTSA is one place that a lot of schools have. Many of those are more focused on some fundraising and some extracurricular activities, but some do have ways of connecting in, and can be a good place to network and just get a temperature of, are you experiencing this, or am I the only one experiencing this with my child? The school site council has more of an oversight role, and they are the ones who often are working alongside the principal to make some decisions. Bilingual Advisory Committee, and there's also the District Bilingual Advisory Committee, are other groups that are specifically targeted. And there are also special education advisory committees that are at the district level that are formed by parents to make sure that students that are in these particular targeted groups are supported. And then, you know, external advocacy organizations are another group as well. So certainly, you know, you're welcome to come talk with us and talk with other student parents on campus, but there are also these external advocacy groups that are specifically organized in order to support parents. So PICE is a group that has offices in Santa Clara, the city of Santa Clara, and they are focused primarily on supporting students and families who are first generation college going families to provide support. We also have Parents Helping Parents is focused on special education families in particular, and providing support and advocacy work. And then the Children's Health Council similarly provides external advocacy. And some of those groups, it's about connecting and again saying, is this normal what we're experiencing here, what I'm experiencing? Sometimes it's about, which is a great reality check to make sure that you feel like, you know, this doesn't feel right, but I'm not sure. And that often having that conversation with other parents can be really helpful in ensuring that you have the understanding that you need to then go advocate and recognize that you're not alone. It's very rare that you would have that conversation. Trust your gut, because if you go have that conversation, chances are that you're going to get reinforced that yeah, the experience that you're having, A, you're not alone, and B, there's something that needs to be addressed that it isn't quite right. Because as parents, when we feel it in our gut, we need to trust that. But the other thing here is they can help you advocate for the school, and they can also provide you with external resources, these three organizations. And some of them provide some of the mental health counseling support, physical health counseling supports, and referrals to other organizations that do that. So that was a lot of information from three folks, and appreciate your sticking with us here. We've got a few more minutes, and I want to make sure that we allow time for some Q&A. So thoughts, comments, questions, and ideas. Again, the collective wisdom of the people on the call is often really powerful. So what other comments, thoughts, or ideas do you have to help us navigate the studenting and parenting at the same time?